to Cannabis Health Radio, where we share powerful, real-life stories from people around the world who are using cannabis as medicine. The goal of this podcast is to raise awareness of the healing potential of cannabis and is not intended as medical advice. And now, here's your host, Ian Jessop.
Welcome to the Cannabis Health Radio podcast. I'm Ian Jessop. Our guest today is currently living with stage 4 breast cancer that has metastasized. Her journey has been marked by many challenges, including a shift in her medical support system and difficult choices around her treatment options. Like so many others, she discovered the potential benefits of cannabis medicine only after her diagnosis and the loss of subsidized care. Despite the hurdles, especially having to stop cannabis periodically due to employment-related drug testing, she's found value and hope in what cannabis can offer. And she wishes to remain anonymous, and we always respect that, so we're referring to our guest today as Alice. Alice, thanks very much for doing this. Tell us about your health prior to your diagnosis. What was it like?
My health was pretty steady. I kept working. I was basically like a pescatarian, and that was my way of kind of, mitigating the health challenges that my parents faced. And I figured, since I didn't take on the habits that my parents had, that I was kind of shielding myself as I would put it. So I wasn't really thinking of, I didn't really have that many health challenges except for some reproductive challenges earlier on in life. And in 2018, I got a partial hysterectomy where I chose to keep my ovaries, thinking, oh, well, I guess the hormones have to keep going. I'm still kind of young. And that was that. And I didn't really think anything of it. I hadn't really had very many major health problems. And I figured, as long as that would continue, that would be great. But in the end of 2023, it actually really started around the pandemic, I would say. I was working in a lab, and since I'm working in the healthcare industry, that's why I have to remain anonymous due to drug testing and so forth. And I was working in a lab, and I was getting a lot of problems with my right arm, and that is the arm that I use to move the machine, which is my main tool for doing my job.
So
and
it's
I thought that
constant motion of the arm.
Yes, you basically turn a wheel about 3,000 times a day.
Wow.
Yeah, depending on the volume of the workload of the lab, you have, you need your upper body to work.
Yeah.
And I was getting a lot of, inflammation, and I could really feel that I really needed to do something about it. But I have kind of like a travel job where I go to different labs for certain periods of time, and the insurance that I have only works when I'm on assignment. And if it's a shift that basically is, let's say, 9 to 5, then it's hard to go to get extensive testing done when you're on assignment. And so I kind of buried my head in the sand. I'm just gonna put it out there. And I just waited until the end of the assignment, which was fine. So in the beginning of 2024, I went to go get a mammogram just to have somewhere to start. And they found several things that were very alarming to them. And I thought first that it was mastitis, which is, a condition where, if you hadn't had babies or something like that, your breasts, they were able to get inflamed or something like that, because it was affecting my, my whole armpit area. And I figured, okay, it shouldn't be anything major. And then when the doctor came in and says, you have to do a biopsy, we think it's cancer. And I work in the same type of field where I cut the specimens where the doctor is diagnosed that it's cancer or not. And so the biggest issue is I got a real wake up call, and
What was
I
it like? What
had
was it like, Alice, when he said that to you? What was it like emotionally?
it was like a slap in the face. I'm not gonna lie. It was just like, what? No, 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 no. This is mastitis. No, it can't be any.
Yeah.
It just hurts a little bit. It's not the end of the world. You know, um, and yeah, it threw me for a loop. But I did end up getting a biopsy pretty quickly. Um, and the doctor took it was a surgeon. They took about 5 different samples, um, and it it got diagnosed, and it turned out I was stage 4. I had stage 4 breast cancer with metastasis on both axillary regions, which is the armpit areas on both sides, but mainly on the right side.
Mm.
And I found out later, about a month later, after, other testing, that it had spread also to parts of my collarbone, my my what is it called? The back part of um, the back part of the shoulder and part of my rib on my right side, and then possibly part of my lower spine. But it was inconclusive, so they're just lumping it all into one. Um, that was just that was hard to deal with. I'm definitely not going to lie about that. I just I took time off. I did my best to grieve. I tried to weigh my options. I did go to see an oncologist, and he suggested 2 medications. They would not. The breast surgeon that had originally done the biopsy refused to operate on me. She said that it wouldn't do any good. There was no way to take out the tumor because it was all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had the idea that maybe I can go to my birth country, which is in Northern Europe, to get other treatment options because it's subsidized healthcare. And my sister invited me to go stay with her while I was figuring out what to do. And that would at least, give her more time away or more time with me because, she also, we were all, basically just preparing because my oncologist said that if you don't take this medication, uh, you know, you have a couple of years at most. And I spent first uh, before I went back to my birth country, I did spend a few months on alternative treatments. Uh, I did uh, ozone therapy, high dose C vitamin therapy. I didn't know if it was working. There was no way to check. And since I was not on healthcare here in the United States, I would have had to pay out of pocket for all the testing, which
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have enough money because the alternative treatments were basically eating up my budget. And so I went back to my birth country, and it took a month or two because they don't just let you in the country, into their healthcare system when you've been gone for a long, many years. Um, so you had to wait. So when I finally got got into the healthcare system, they basically mirrored the same treatment option that my oncologist had given me in the U.S., which was hormone therapy, no surgery, because they also said it's not going to help, it's not going to cure you. And I said, well, I don't, I'm not expecting a cure. I know, it's in 3 different places, but at least you can get out the primary tumor. And they said no. So one of the hormone treatments was supposed to be costing 15,000 US dollars a month for the rest of my life.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, and that was one of the reasons why I went back to my birth country because I couldn't afford it, obviously. And
I mean, you'd have to be a
in
millionaire to afford that,
yeah, yeah,
right?
and
For the
yeah,
rest of
at
your
50,
life.
I couldn't even afford I couldn't even afford I did the math. I couldn't even afford a quarter of a pill of a month's supply, much less month after year. It just, like who sets these prices up? I mean, it's
Yeah.
nuts. So in my birth country, they have subsidized healthcare. So for give or take about 300 US dollars, I was given a 5 month supply while I was still, living there. And it worked
So
for a while.
you got for $300, you got a 5 month
Yeah,
supply, which would have cost $15,000 in the States
$15,000 a month.
a
So it
month.
was
So
five
that's
boxes. So 15,000 times five.
yeah. So that's $75,000,
Yes, and that was only for 5 months.
but you got it for $300.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the pricing is just insane, isn't it?
It's insane, yeah. And there it would have actually cost them about $2,000 US a month. So their pricing, $2,000 compared to $15,000 a month. Obviously,
Hmm.
different countries are getting completely different price pictures compared to US healthcare. But I
Yeah.
digress. That's a completely different subject.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
yeah, it was crazy. And I was looking into cannabis, but I knew that in my birth country, it was not one of the European countries that allowed that. And I figured, okay, I have to go back to work somehow. And I couldn't work in my birth country because I wasn't certified there. You had to have a lot more education in order to be even be, allowed to do the same thing I did. So I figured, okay, I made the decision to go back to the US. Um, and I looked up, I had known about your podcast before through Corey Yelland,
Hmm.
God rest her soul. And I had followed your podcasts. And, in the back of my mind, I was thinking, okay, let me try and do the treatments that are afforded to me to begin with and see how they work. And they did work. It shrunk the primary tumor up to about half. And that was great. But when I told them that back in my birth country, when I told them that I was needing to go back to the US to work because I couldn't, afford to keep living, without having to work,
Hmm.
they said, well, as long as you're not living here, we can't extend you healthcare. So they sent me off with 3 more months of care, of medication, and then that was it. And I, I my next move was cannabis. And so I got with my contacts in my circle of friends, so to speak, because I'm in a state where you can't have that. And so I got 4 different strains, just like you and Corey had been
Hmm.
talking about, and I made my own full extract cannabis oil.
Good for you.
Thank you. It was the best option for me due to the fact that I I didn't have a job at that point, so this was like my Hail Mary.
Yeah.
And I started taking it. I did go to another state where recreational cannabis was allowed. And I stayed there for about 8 months. And while I was there working, I was able to take um, the oil at night before I went to sleep. And I also did the suppositories at night, which I made my own as well. And I got up to after about a month and a half, I got up to about a gram in total between the suppository and the oil. And it definitely helped. Sure, it made me a little bit tired, but I was still lucid I was still more than lucid in the daytime, so I was able to do my job. There wasn't any interruption,
Hmm.
care, and so forth. But given that I only work on assignment, my assignment was up. And so I had to go back to uh, my home state where it's not allowed. Um, and so while waiting for a new assignment, you basically have to be 30 days out before you are, you have, because I have to do drug tests before I get a new assignment. And so
Mm.
I have to be constantly ready to take a drug test. And that means that I have to pause my cannabis treatment in between, you know, assignments. So
God,
I
that's
do other
tough.
things.
Yeah,
It
that's
it is
tough.
tough. It is tough because, you are basically thinking that this is this is my life. This is,
Hmm.
gonna, this is gonna impact, my mortality. I mean, there's I'm completely sold on cannabis, but in order for me to work, I still have to, follow all my protocols in order to be able to keep my job.
Yeah.
So
What is the
it's a
what is
balance.
what is the state of your cancer today?
It's still stage 4. I'm pretty sure it's gonna keep being stage 4, but thankfully I'm not in any pain. I do several different other things as part of my cancer, management protocol, and I take the least amount of cancer medication that I can. There's one cancer medication that I can afford, which is one of the, the staples of cancer, hormonal cancer, um, treatment protocols that they have. So I'm able to afford that with my job. But the most expensive treatment, that is the one that's, that's supposed to do all the magic and so forth, that's the one that I can't afford. So I just don't take it.
Alice, how do you deal with this, with your situation psychologally and emotionally?
It's
It's
some
got to
days
be,
are better than others,
yeah, it's got to be tough.
definitely. It is tough. I have my friends, I have my siblings. We talk things out. There are days that are better than others, definitely. I go to a cancer support group, which helps a lot. We discuss different options. We discuss just, the days that we're having. We discuss basically everything and then some.
Hmm.
And there are just so many people out there that are doing the traditional treatments and they're coming back, especially chemo and radiation, which was two of the things that I had researched before since I'm in, the field. And the statistics are just mind-boggling. They're mind-boggling in terms of low, low success rates, I would say, um, especially when it comes to, um, doesn't really matter what kind of cancer you have. If you do either chemo or radiation, there's a lot bigger risk that it will come back. And so my mindset is on doing as much as I can with cannabis, in order to not have to resort to that. And it hasn't even been offered to me because they feel that it's basically a waste of time because it's not going to help. But
Yeah, there
yeah.
was a study that came out, I think, around 20 years ago in the early 2000s that was done
Mm.
in the US and Australia about chemotherapy and showing that the success rate is between 3 and 5%.
It's
3
abysmal.
and 5%. And,
Yeah.
and I see people who, um, and it's up to the individual what
Yeah.
treatment they want to choose to have. And but I see people who have gone the chemo route and they've gone on cannabis. They've been very successful, and we've actually interviewed people who have done this, and their family is opposed to cannabis, so they go off it and they go back to chemo, and it's unsuccessful, and they die.
Yeah.
And it's very, very sad. And I think you have
It is.
another story about you had basal cell carcinoma on the forehead,
Yes.
right?
Yes. I
When did
did.
that happen?
That was actually diagnosed in, I would say, the spring of 2022, I would say. Um, and that was in another state that I was working, that actually did have recreational cannabis, but I didn't even realize that you could use RSO, which is another form of full extract cannabis oil, to
Mm-hmm.
treat it. And so I went the traditional route and I had to do the so-called Mohs procedure on my forehead, where um, they took enough tissue to make a round circle about the size of my thumb, and then they closed it up in sort of kind of like an eye looking fashion. And had I known that I could treat it with that, because it was honestly the size of like, a like a little birthmark basically.
Hmm.
And they took so much more than they needed. And I mean, given that I work in the same field, I've seen biopsies that are as big as your hand, like the circumference of your fist, that
Wow.
they take out of people's cheeks, that they take out of people's everywhere,
Yeah.
name a body part. And I mean, they will just dissect, just because they need to make sure that they get the margins of the cancer. And thankfully it was basal cell, which doesn't it's not supposed to it's not supposed to spread. It's not like melanoma. So there's a 99% uh, cure rate when you grab it surgically. But had I known, I would have been able to skip basically 5 or 6 months of healing time, and and a scar, and not have to think about, my one side of my face looks higher than the other, and all that good stuff. So,
Actually, on
but
the
that was a
video,
precursor.
yeah, on the video here, I can't even notice it.
No, they did a very good job. It's just a very light streak, but
Oh, okay.
but yeah, there are some issues with trying to, I am a woman trying to apply makeup and trying to get the eyebrows looking that, you're not a comical character from some kind of cartoon. But you do what you can. The vanity aside, I don't need to think about that cancer at least. So, but
Well, I've told
yeah.
this on another podcast, but I'll repeat it because your basal cell on your forehead, which was interesting because in February of 2024,
Mhm.
I had this kind of growth in my forehead. My wife was kept looking at it and kept looking at it, and it
Yeah.
looked awkward.
Mhm.
And so I was having coffee with Corey one day, and I showed her, and she took a picture. She said, "That looks like melanoma."
Oh.
And so she sent the picture to other people, people in Europe and people in the U.S., and they all said it was melanoma.
Oh.
And I was asked, "Are you going to the doctor?" I said, "No, I'm not going to go to a doctor because the doctor will want to start cutting it,
Yes.
and I don't want that."
Right.
And so I was gifted actually some cannabis oil.
Oh.
And the fellow who gifted it to me said, "It'll get worse before it gets better." And
Okay.
it did. And I had
Mhm.
one spot, went to three, and then one down here on just my forehead. And I applied cannabis oil on it every day,
Mhm.
twice a day. And after a couple of months, it started to get smaller and smaller and smaller. And then it disappeared, with the exception of one
Wow.
spot. There was
Okay.
one spot that just was very, very stubborn. And
Mhm.
the cannabis oil wouldn't work, frankincense oil wouldn't work. And we tried everything. And my wife went to the drugstore and got some antifungal cream, put some antifungal cream on it. In 2 weeks, it was gone.
Oh, wow.
But you know what? During that period when I had that,
Right.
it was kind of a dark period for me because I started to think of dying.
Of course.
And I mean, you've gone through that, right?
Oh, yes.
And quite,
I've had the entire conversation with my siblings, because they're the ones that are left, of who gets what once I pass, um, what to do with, what to do with everything, how they're going to maneuver, how I want to be, like, do I want to be cremated, all the
yeah,
nitty gritty of like not wanting to deal with that type of a situation. And it is heart wrenching, and it
yeah.
definitely makes you very humble. very
Yeah,
humbled to be alive.
and you certainly get a different appreciation for things in life, don't you?
Yes, yes, you do. And you wake when you kind of start to to know, if you don't already, you start to seek a higher power, if you haven't already.
Hmm.
And um, me being able to pray every single day is part of my protocol, and it's basically what keeps me on an even keel on my good days, and it's basically what pulls me off the ledge on other days.
Yeah.
Um, it's just I wouldn't have been able to get where I am without it, and I I just it's part of me, and there is a higher power, and it's not going, it's unless you have if you have a miracle, that's great, but it's probably not going to be what is going to cure you. It's You need a multifaceted approach when you've gotten cancer, and
Hmm.
you need to look hard at your life and see what it is that you're doing and what you can improve upon. And I, stress was one of the biggest things that I had just um, dug my head in the sand about. And it's true. They do say that, prior trauma in life um, is one of those major indicators that you may be setting yourself up for cancer if you don't try to work through it. And needless to say, there's been quite a few bumps in the road in my life, and whether I have worked them out or not, that's you know that that's to be determined. But I'm working on them, and I do realize that they do play a very big role in my uh, my future sanity first and foremost, and also of me being able to cope, because this may be one of those things where you have a long game. There are stage 4 breast cancer warriors that have been around for 15 plus years.
Oh
Um,
yeah, and
it
and I know with you taking cannabis, I know you're going to beat this because we have
I
interviewed
think so.
dozens and dozens and dozens of women who have had breast cancer,
Mhm.
stage 4, given months to live,
Yes,
and they have overcome that. They have eradicated, completely eliminated their
hmm
breast cancer, and they're very healthy today. And
exactly.
I think that's what's going to happen to you. And
Thank you. I hope so too.
you just have to work around this issue of being drug tested with your job.
Yes, yes. I'm actually thinking I have one more year until my pension is vested, and then I can find another type of job where they don't do drug testing, because there are lots of jobs out there that don't do drug testing, where I don't need to think about that aspect, and I can focus on my treatment and my healing.
Hmm.
So that's my next project, so to speak. Just one more
Yeah,
year.
the simple things in life really become important now, don't they?
Yes, yes, they do.
And
Definitely.
the rat race really is a rat race.
Oh, yes.
And once you, I mean, I look at it at my age when I have more years behind me than I do in front of me, and I think, some of the things that used to really piss me off when I was younger,
Mm,
I don't care about them anymore. it's
yes. Yes, and so many things that are like keeping up with the Joneses, or having to be tuned in 24/7. That just fades away. It really
Yeah.
does. Really makes you, if you're really honed into healing, then you focus on that. There's a very famous uh, cancer warrior. I think her name is Chris Carr. She also has a podcast. Um, she has had an incurable cancer with a death rate of about in the 90s, like 90 something 9 percentile, where she is one of the very few that has. survived for 22 something years.
Mm-hmm.
And her motto is keep your eyes on your own damn paper. Basically,
Yeah.
stick with your, focus on your healing, focus on your protocol. Don't get distracted by all the noise. Everywhere is everywhere you look, there's noise.
Yeah, you're very
You know,
true. Alice, what would you say to someone who is somewhat skeptical about cannabis that may want to try it but is kind of afraid?
I would say give it a chance because before I even considered cannabis and before I even started listening to your podcast, I was so scared about it. I was all into the stigma
Mm-hmm.
of it's weed and as soon as you take any substance, the door's going to get knocked on by police, and that's just not the case. There are so many therapeutic benefits to cannabis and so many different ways to heal with it that it is just amazing. And my wholehearted recommendation is you can be lucid 100% of the day by taking it at night in both suppository form. And I know that kind of freaks people out, but
Mm-hmm.
if a traditional doctor tells you, hey, this medication comes in a suppository form and you have to take it, what are you going to do? You're most likely going to take it and not have any qualms about it. So, like, there's really no reason not to. And there are so many tutorials on YouTube that it's just staggering on ways to make it, ways to take it. I wholeheartedly recommend it. So both suppositories and I take it on top of I can't take it like on my tongue because the mixture that I make is very tasty.
Mm-hmm.
So I put it on top of half a peanut and I put the peanut under my tongue and I let it, sit there for, a few minutes before I just chew it and just let it go down. And that's the easiest way for me to take it. And it's worked so far. It definitely helps. So I definitely recommend it.
Before we started this podcast, you and I were talking and we had chocolate before the podcast. Why don't you put it on a
Yes.
piece of chocolate?
I mean, I could, but unfortunately, I'm kind of sensitive to that kind of stuff when I go to bed. That I can't have
Yeah.
caffeine or dark chocolate because then it just, yeah, it just, I can't sleep. So
Yeah.
I take it on a peanut, that works, or you can just, put it on a cracker or whatever, as long as you can track how much it is that you are able to take as in dose. And yeah, and if it's too much for you to take internally, then take it as a suppository. You can even take them as a suppository in the back, or you can take them, via
Mm-hmm.
your lady parts. Find a way, honestly, just find a way because it will help. It definitely will. And I have every confidence that it will help me as well as soon as I can figure out a way to take it without having to take a break from it.
I love your story because I think one day you're going to get the all clear.
I
And
think so too.
I think you've got a great attitude, a great positive attitude. And I wish you all the best in the future. And thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much.
Are you looking for quality RSO or have questions about how to take it? Al Morenton with MyFitLife is our new trusted wellness partner, and Al is offering something really special for you, a completely free 30-minute consultation to discuss your specific health challenges. Al will give you honest advice about his cannabis products and wellness supplements that might help your situation. Ready to get real answers? Go to myfitlife.net/cannabis health to schedule your free consultation and mention Cannabis Health Radio to receive 20% off anything you decide is right for you. Thank you for listening to Cannabis Health Radio.
Thanks for tuning in. You can find more information and check out all our past episodes at cannabishealthradio.com. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes, and follow us on social media and our Rumble channel. This podcast is listener supported, so if you've found it helpful, please consider making a donation, big or small, right on our site. And if you know someone who could benefit from this episode, please share it with them. Leaving a quick review also helps others discover us. We really appreciate you being here. Thanks again.